Good evening. It's Monday, the 26th of May, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Severe weather. An early start to the monsoon season causes waterlogging in India's capital, New Delhi. Trump disapproves. The latest round of airstrikes across the Ukraine by Russian forces met with disdain from the US. And catching kangaroos. A police chase ensues after a cheeky pet makes a hop for it.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Prashansa Gunawardana.
Good evening once again. Overnight rains due to the arrival of the monsoon season, which was 8 days earlier than expected, caused heavy waterlogging in the Indian capital of New Delhi. Meanwhile, authorities in India's southern Kerala state have issued an alert after a ship carrying oil and hazardous cargo leaked and sank off the state's coast in the Arabian Sea.
Traffic was backed up and vehicles were submerged underwater. Locals blamed the poor drainage system and said the priority should be cleanliness. India, with 1.4 billion people, relies on rainfall to support its population, many of whom live off and rely on farming. However, excessive rainfall can cause floods and waterlogging, especially due to poor drainage systems. Concurrent to the weather troubles, the capsizing ship's spill occurred in a Liberian-flagged vessel that capsized near Kochi city. The coastal stretch is rich in biodiversity and is also an important tourist destination. All 24 crew members on board the ship have been rescued, but some of the ship's 640 containers have reportedly been drifting towards the shore, prompting evacuations in the area. Authorities fear that oil, fuel, and other harmful substances that have leaked from the ship and its cargo could endanger the health of residents and marine life.
More regional updates now. Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim welcomed his ASEAN counterparts today at the start of the 46th summit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This year's ASEAN chair said at the start of a two-day summit that it would continue speaking separately to Myanmar's military junta and its armed opposition groups to try to foster direct talks between the warring sides.
Myanmar junta chief Min Aung Hlaing has been excluded from the ASEAN summit since 2021 in response to the coup. Thailand's foreign minister said last week that at the summit his country would propose broader international engagement with Myanmar. Speaking at the summit, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim said that he has also written to US President Donald Trump to organize a meeting with the regional bloc as it seeks ways to offset global trade uncertainty from Trump's tariff threats. ASEAN leaders are expected to meet Chinese Premier Li Qiang on Tuesday along with counterparts from Middle East countries. The talks come amid widespread global market volatility and slowing economic growth sparked by Trump's threats of US trade tariffs.
Over in the US, President Donald Trump told the media that he was not happy with Russia's recent large-scale strike against Ukraine. Speaking to reporters, Trump accused Putin of killing a lot of people in the attack.
Explosions were heard in Ukraine's capital Kyiv overnight as Russia launched the war's largest aerial attack across the country, hours before the two sides completed their third and final round of a major prisoner swap. Residents took shelter in an underground metro station in Kyiv during the assault, the second in 2 days. State emergency services released footage said to show the aftermath of the attacks in other areas, with homes seen on fire in Kyiv region's Makhalivka. According to Ukraine's Air Force, Russia had launched nearly 370 drones and missiles in its overnight assault. It said it was able to shoot down most of them. Children were among those killed, officials said. Mykolaiv in the south was among other regional centers also hit, as well as Ternopil in the west and Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for action from the United States, which has taken a softer line on Russia and its leader Vladimir Putin since President Donald Trump took office. The silence of America, the silence of others in the world only encourages Putin, Zelensky wrote on Telegram. Every such terrorist Russian strike is reason enough for new sanctions against Russia, he added. Later on Sunday, Russia and Ukraine confirmed they had swapped 303 prisoners each, completing the three-day exchange of a total of 1,000 prisoners each. Ukrainian authorities released video showing its citizens freed from Russian captivity eating chocolate for the first time in 3 years. Russia's defense ministry also published video showing soldiers on a bus celebrating their release. The exchange was the biggest since the war began 3 years ago. It was the only concrete step towards peace to emerge from the first direct talks between the two sides on May 16th, when they failed to agree on a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has agreed to extend a deadline to negotiate tariffs with the European Union until the 9th of July. It comes after European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said she had a good call with Trump on Sunday.
Donald Trump has delayed imposing 50% tariffs on goods from the EU. The president told reporters he would put back the move until July, after speaking to European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen.
And she asked for an extension on the June 1st date. And she said she wants to get down to serious negotiation because I've told you specifically, but I told anybody that would listen, they have to do that. And we had a very nice call and I agreed to move it.
Trump had threatened a June start date on Friday. He acted after becoming frustrated by the pace of talks with the EU. The threat sparked fresh turmoil on global markets at the end of last week, sending stocks skidding again. In social media posts on Sunday, von der Leyen welcomed the delay and said Europe was ready to move fast on talks. Trump also addressed the general purpose of tariffs, agreeing with past comments by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent that the goal was not for the US to start making low-cost items like textiles.
We want to make big things. We want to do the AI thing with the computers and the many elements. But the textile, I'm not looking to make T-shirts, to be honest. I'm not looking to make socks.
Now the backtrack on EU tariffs may be welcomed by markets on Monday. But global stocks have been roiled for weeks by Washington's erratic policy-making on trade. Critics say the uncertainty is making it impossible for businesses to plan for the future.
Let's go in for a short commercial break. More world news coming right after this. Welcome back. Pope Leo XIV was installed in the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the seat of the Diocese of Rome. The new pontiff, who was selected on May 8th, is by right the Bishop of Rome and symbolically took possession of the throne of St. Peter inside the Basilica.
Christian with you and Bishop for you, Pope Leo said in his inaugural speech, quoting St. Augustine, to whose order he belongs. After the Mass, the Pope appeared from the balcony of the Basilica to impart a blessing to the people of Rome. At the end of the ceremony, Pope Leo headed to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where his predecessor Pope Francis chose to be buried. Previously, Pope Leo had paid a visit to the City Hall, where he greeted the mayor, Roberto Gualtieri.
The U.S. Defense Department is exploring the option of relocating some American soldiers stationed in South Korea to other parts of the Indo-Pacific. This comes following tariff talks with the South Korean government following the elections, amid some tense ties with China.
The U.S. is reportedly considering withdrawing around 4,500 American troops from South Korea to Guam or other locations in the Indo-Pacific region. That's about 16% of the total number of U.S. forces in South Korea, where there are roughly 28,500 troops. Citing defense officials familiar with the matter, the Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday that the idea is being developed by the Pentagon for consideration by Trump as part of an informal policy review. While adding the proposal has yet to reach Trump's desk, it said this is one of several ideas under discussion by senior officials. Since his first term, Trump has considered changing the U.S. footprint in South Korea, which relies on close coordination with American forces to deter threats from the north.
It depends. We pay for military over in Europe. We don't get reimbursed by much. South Korea too.
But the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command has presented negative views about the idea of a troop drawdown in a Senate hearing last month, saying the loss of the force on the Korean Peninsula would mean a higher probability that North Korea would invade.
As General Brunson said, North Korea's development of advanced nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles pose a direct threat to our homeland and our allies, and are executing a deepening cooperation with Russia.
Trump has been hinting at an attempt to renegotiate a deal on sharing the cost for American troops stationed in Korea, saying Washington cannot be taken advantage of any longer in military and trade. He's described South Korea as a money machine, insisting that Seoul should be paying $10 billion a year. Experts suggest pulling troops out of Korea could mean the Trump administration is looking to redeploy them to areas that better align with priority goals, such as countering China. Seoul's defense ministry explained there hasn't been any discussions with Washington over a possible troop reduction. The Pentagon reportedly said there were no policy announcements to make.
This past weekend was the final weekend before early voting kicks off in South Korea, which kept the contenders busier than ever. The Liberal Party's Lee Jae-myung spent the weekend promising the people to revitalize the economy, while the People Power Party continued a request merger with the Reform Party.
The Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung held a press conference on Sunday ahead of early voting later this week, where he reiterated that restoring the economy is his top priority. But he also reminded voters of what triggered the election in the first place, the declaration of martial law.
Those who threatened our constitutional order and public safety must be held accountable. But I will not engage in political retaliation targeting individuals.
On the economic front, Lee pledged to launch a presidential emergency task force to tackle inflation and tariffs, and said a supplementary budget will follow to jumpstart growth. Lee spent Sunday in the Chungcheongdo provinces after making stops in Gyeonggi-do province, a familiar region where he previously served as governor. Both areas are key swing regions expected to play a decisive role in the race. Kim Moon-soo of the People Power Party chose Gyeongsangbuk-do province, a conservative stronghold, for Saturday. In Daegu, Kim met with former President Park Geun-hye and argued that her impeachment had been unjust. The location and message come as he tries to strengthen support among traditional PPP supporters who aren't so enthusiastic yet. But at the same time, he appeared to draw a line between himself and another impeached president, Yoon Suk-yeol.
Criticism that the party is controlled by the president and his aides will no longer stand. I will put an end to power-driven, factional politics.
Kim pledged to revise the PPP charter to block presidential interference in party affairs, seen as a direct response and criticism over Yoon's role in internal decisions. Meanwhile, Reform Party candidate Lee Jun-seok campaigned in the capital region, targeting younger voters and doubling down on attacks against both rivals, Lee Jae-myung for progressive economic policies and Kim Moon-soo for his stance on martial law. As ballots began printing on Sunday, Lee's name was confirmed as the fourth on the list, regardless of any merger talks with the PPP.
Venezuela's ruling Socialist Party held its significant majority in the National Assembly in a Sunday election, winning nearly 83% of votes according to the Electoral Authority in a contest boycotted by some opposition leaders amid deep division among parties opposed to the government of President Nicolas Maduro.
Some of the country's major opposition leaders call for voters to abstain in protest of the official results of the July 2024 presidential election, which the opposition says it won, but which authorities say was a Maduro victory. Sunday's legislative results will keep the ruling party in control of the Attorney General's office and the top court, whose members are elected by lawmakers. Turnout to choose 24 state governors and 285 lawmakers was 42.6% of 21 million eligible voters. National Electoral Council Rector Carlos Quintero said in a declaration broadcast similar to the turnout in the 2021 elections. A governor was elected to represent the new state of Guanya Escaba despite an order from the International Court of Justice that voting not take place in the region, which is a subject of a territorial dispute with neighboring Guanya.
Time for a short break now. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Officers in Colorado undertook a police chase. Though a tricky capturing effort overall, the suspect to be apprehended was not as fast running on two legs than it would have been hopping.
Oh, I get it. Yep.
Hi, buddy. Got him? Irwin is at it again. Police in Durango, Colorado say the kangaroo escaped from his owner's home again. So officers came out to wrangle him.
Oh, I get it. Yep.
Once Irwin was caught, Officer Garrison walked him out to a waiting police car without much resistance from the animal. Cops say the last time Irwin escaped was in September, and they're hoping he won't make a break for it again. However, catching this kangaroo doesn't seem to be too difficult a task.
How far are you willing to go for the sake of an animal in need? Well, for a group at San Diego's Humane Society, no disguise is ever too hard to pull off if it promises to help care for cubs.
This woman is transforming herself into a bear for a reason, and it's not for an early Halloween party. She's crawling on all fours, teaching an orphaned bear how to eat from a bowl of mashed up fruit and bugs. Sure looks like the little guy enjoys what's on the menu. The baby bear was found all alone and crying by campers in the forest and was brought to San Diego's Humane Society last month. When the bear first arrived, there were no bear costumes. The employees wore camouflage and bottle-fed the fragile bear. Once they started dressing up as bears, they went to great lengths to stay in disguise from head to toe so that the bear would not be drawn to humans. Now that the bear has gained 10 pounds and is growing claws and teeth, the employees have switched up their bear masks.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Prashansa Gunawardana. And we leave you tonight with more visuals of historic Cairo's Heliopolis district celebrating its 120th anniversary. Also, don't forget to send us your feedback through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 07680579333. Stay tuned for the nightly business report up next. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.